actual cranberries and they put cranberry vodka in it.
Ooh, to kind of up the flavor a little bit.
Oh yeah, extra cranberry. It was like
Man.
so good. I need to get some cranberry vodka, and we can mix it with this.
Yeah. Oh.
I had some of those. I had a cranberry mule at Thanksgiving, and they made them with like actual cranberries, and they put cranberry vodka in it.
Ooh, to kind of up the flavor a little bit.
Oh yeah, extra cranberry. It was like
Man.
so good. I need to get some cranberry vodka, and we can mix it with this.
Yeah. Oh. Oh, man. It is a Super Clash podcast, a podcast about shorter games. It is episode 78. I'm your host, Kale.
Hey, I'm Connor.
And happy holidays. Happy December.
Yes, and happy Game of the Year, episode 1.
Yes. This is the episode where Connor and I will discuss the top 10 games that we played for the show this year. And I'm really excited for this because, for one, it's a really relaxed month. We're taking the time to play the games we want to play. There's really no work involved in this debate that we're going to have, and so I'm really interested seeing what Connor has in his top 5.
Mm-hmm. So we're doing 5 and 5, and then we're going to try to rank them in a agreed-upon order.
Yes. Honestly, I don't really have anything to talk about before we get into that. I mean, my week was pretty slow.
We did some fun stuff yesterday.
Oh, we did. That's right.
Yeah, we went to the Kansas City Zoo,
Yeah.
and they have a I forget what it's called. It was a light show essentially where they had a bunch of
Glow Wild.
Yes, and they had a bunch of like paper mache statues of all different kinds of animals, including like a basically life-size whale that you could walk through.
Yeah, that thing was huge.
Yeah. And so that was a ton of fun to do. Very cold, but it was still fun.
Yeah, it was cold. But that hot chocolate that we had,
Yeah, that warmed
that was
you up.
delicious.
Oh yeah.
Man.
And then tomorrow we have some more fun to do.
We do. We're gonna see the quintessential quintuplets movie, and me and my wife finally get to see who Futuro marries. They've been teasing this for 2 seasons now. You've read the manga, so you know. And
I know.
I can tell by the look on your face, it's killing you for me to find out.
It is so hard because there's literally nothing I can say positive, negative, or even middling that won't spoil it. So I just can't react to especially when you and your wife were like in the back seat yesterday on the way to the zoo and just like speculating, and I was just like sitting there just like, I can't say anything. Can't say anything.
Just feeling your veins pop out of your forehead.
Just don't react. Keep looking forward. Just go, you know. And
I did ask one question earlier today, and I did ask if it is one of the girls that he marries, and they didn't like throw in like a curveball or something.
Yeah, I don't think that's much of a spoiler because it's pretty obvious it's got to be, one of them.
It was established in the very first season that he was going to marry one of these girls, and in one of the intros, the last shot was them like on their wedding day, and one of the girls throwing the bouquet.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be really interested.
Yeah, and I cannot wait to see your reactions because I know the moment it's revealed, I'm gonna be looking over at you and your wife and just being like, let's see what they say.
I'm pulling for Miku.
Hey man, I pull for Miku as well. Miku is best girl.
She is best girl.
So that's pretty much it. On that, I'm gonna see a men's Christmas choir performance thing tomorrow night. So.
Nice. So. Yeah, so that means we would have to watch the movie and we have to get home.
Yes, pretty much. We got to like go and then dip out and go back home.
So this men's choir, this sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it's like a gay men's choir, and they're doing like this. It's like a parody show. So it's like gay variants of famous Christmas songs, and so it seems like it would be really funny. And so we're gonna go see that. And
That sounds awesome.
yeah, man. Yeah. And I think we're going with my wife's cousins and her aunt and uncle. So
Nice.
it'll be fun.
Awesome. Do you have any games that you want to talk about before we dive in? Because I really haven't played any God of War since Wednesday, just because I've been busy. Because you actually came over to my house Wednesday. We watched a movie. We watched Summer Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all over the place tonight. I'm sorry.
We're just remembering what happened this week. It's been a weird one.
It's been like I said, this week has felt really long.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty brain dead right now.
What are your thoughts on Summer Wars?
I thought it was really good.
Like, do you think it's up there with like Belle, or is it like a little less?
It's probably a little less. Like, I think Belle is I think it's a better movie.
Belle also has good music going for it too,
Yeah.
which really helps.
Man, it was just really weird how the main love interest, if you want to call it that, had like this really super creepy crush on his uncle, or on her uncle.
Yeah.
Like, it just like no. I'm sorry, that's a red flag. Like, it's one thing for like a 5-year-old to have a crush on like the cool uncle, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But a teenager,
Yeah, that makes it a little weird.
that makes it a lot of weird.
Yep.
So that was the only thing that brought it down. Everything else was interesting.
Yeah. But I don't know if I had beaten it when we did last week's podcast, but I beat Pokemon Scarlet.
I think you mentioned that on our drive to the zoo yesterday.
Yeah, and I've been prepping for the big Charizard raid. I don't think I've completed enough 5-star raids to do it because it's a 7-star raid for the Charizard. But I leveled up one of my Pokemon to fight the Charizard to up to level 100 so that it could take it on. And now I just need to
Nice.
do some 5-star raids to qualify.
Nice.
So yeah, that's fun.
Cool.
And played more Trigger Witch today.
I meant to play that when I got home, and then I got distracted doing dishes. So
It's pretty fun so far. I beat another level.
for me, I just need to it feels better probably to play with a pro controller, just because Trigger Witch I tried looking through some of the settings, but Trigger Witch kind of has the settings of what Helmut did, to where it plays like a twin stick shooter, but you need to press the trigger to shoot.
Yeah.
So it's a little weird for me. I was kind of hoping to be closer to like a true twin stick shooter.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's not as punishing as games like Helmut.
no.
It's way more accessible, I think.
Just by the checkpoints. The checkpoints are super friendly.
Yeah, and I don't think I've died once yet in this game. Like, it's been pretty...
I've died a couple times, but that's probably just because I probably just, like I said, I just need to maybe just grab a pro controller and then
You need to get good scrub?
fuck off. But it's a good game. I'm liking it a lot.
Nice.
So,
nice.
All right, Connor, let's just go ahead and dive in to our top 10.
Dun, 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 dun. Starting with Kale's top 5.
My
Number 5.
Number 5. Cadence of Hyrule.
Okay. All right.
So, this is one of our early games that we played with the new format, and I was always looking forward to Crypt of the Necrodancer. I remember you talking about this game for a while, and you said it, and you mentioned a like a successor, or it's not really an expansion, but it's a variation on Crypt of the Necrodancer that was Legend of Zelda themed.
Yeah.
And I bought it when I bought my Switch, because I couldn't find Crypt of the Necrodancer, but you don't need to play Crypt of the Necrodancer really to understand this game, even though the character from Crypt of the Necrodancer is in this game.
Mm-hmm.
But I just had such a good time playing this, to where it was the easiest roguelite game I've played, to where you lose all your stuff, but you gain diamonds with every room that you clear out, and you get powerful really quickly in this game.
And it's very accessible, I think, because you can play
Absolutely.
it. You can play it like Crypt of the Necrodancer, or you could just play it like a Zelda game.
Yeah,
if you wanted.
Yeah, you can turn off the rhythm if you want, but the feeling that you get when you clear a room that's difficult or figure out how a puzzle works in rhythm is just so rewarding. And the boss battles are so much fun and rewarding, and the music is so good.
Oh yeah.
And I just had a blast playing this game.
Okay.
And I'm interested in wanting to go through this game again to like unlock all the chests and get up to max level. And I've been interested in playing Crypt of the Necrodancer just so I can
you
play
can play
more.
it. You can go back and play as the villain, I think, in Cadence.
Yes, yeah, you can.
So that'd be a fun way to go back and try it and mix things up a little bit, you know?
It's such a good game, and it plays, aside from the rhythm part, as like a classic NES Zelda game to where it's top down, and you have to navigate through these environments and time your attacks and distance from your enemies to not get hit.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a perfect blend of a modern Zelda game and a classic Zelda game, and just was so good. It's stuck out in my memory.
Okay. Why would you put it at a 5 versus a 1?
Probably just because the early game is difficult and it's very frustrating, and it took me sticking to it for a long time to finally kind of start seeing results.
Mm-hmm.
And the forest part, to where like, unless you had no idea where to go or what to do, of how those rooms kept cycling.
Oh yeah.
I thought it was a glitch, and I thought my game glitched out, and so I actually started over, and I had the same issue, and so I had looked it up and realized it was by design.
Yeah, and as I recall, I'm a little hazy on it, but weren't there a few like glitches in the game that we encountered?
The castle where you go in to fight Ganon, I couldn't get that to work the first few times. I had to reboot my Switch several times for it to finally work, and I actually had to Google it to try to find a workaround for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really surprised they haven't patched that out, especially since the game's been out for almost 3 years now.
Yeah.
So very strange. I don't know why they haven't patched that out, but yeah, that's my number 5.
Okay.
Cadence of Hyrule.
Okay. Are you ready for mine?
Yes.
It is not Cadence of Hyrule. It is Dust and Elysian Tale.
Oh yeah.
I keep thinking back to the games we played this year, and that one stuck out to me as just a lot of fun.
That game was so good.
Just
You're
chaining all of the combos and the world that you were in, plus the story itself was rather interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The controls always felt really tight, and honestly, as far as platformers go, it just felt like a very unique and just satisfying experience to chain the different abilities that your character had, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the main reason I chose it for this spot, and I could genuinely see going back to this game and playing it again in the future, and I'm actually kind of bummed that there was never a sequel to this game.
Yeah, that game was really good.
It had like a lot of interesting bosses. There was a lot of different like side quests you could accomplish if you wanted. It was almost like you combined a platformer with an RPG and, you know, like a game, I don't know what you would call the genre, but a game where you rack up a bunch of combos, you know?
Almost like a Warriors game.
Or like a beat 'em up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like it had a lot of different DNA in it, but it worked really well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a game that holds up really well today, despite being probably one of the older games we'll discuss tonight. You know?
Yes, I think it was like a 2010 game.
Yeah, it was originally a 360 game, as I recall.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. It was.
It was an Xbox Live Arcade game or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason it's number 5 versus a higher ranking is there were a few things I didn't like about the game. The thing that stood out to me the most was like I wasn't super in love with the art style at times. I think the art design was a little bit amateur. It seemed almost like a fan fiction version of a game, right? As well as there were a few bosses that were just absolutely obnoxious to fight near the end. Like that final boss in that game was so obnoxiously annoying to fight. And I think that detracted a little bit from me. And I also think that by the time you got near the end of the game, you had fought all the different enemy types, and they were kind of getting a little bit redundant, and you hadn't unlocked. By the time you unlocked all the moves, you were probably 3/4 of the way through the game, and so you weren't unlocking anything new, so it got a little stale near the end. But I think despite all of that, it's a really fun game, and I think being able to play it on the Steam Deck was just a great experience for me.
Yeah. So would you rank this above or below Cadence?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think they're really close. I'd say slightly above. I think I had a little bit more fun with it.
So, all right, awesome.
So we'll come back to the final ranking once we've got them all out here.
Yes. All right. Awesome. Okay, my number 4. Little Nightmares 2.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
So, obviously, like this one was kind of hard for me between the first and second one, which I'll touch base on the first game later on, but this game was just so good and so much fun, and it was fun trying to figure out the right path to take. Just because of the speed of the PS5, it was instantaneous.
Oh yeah, and I think the fact that it had a free PS5 upgrade made that game look so gorgeously disgusting.
And it's like the monsters is still like some of the best monster designs I've seen in a game. It was rewarding to figure out the puzzles and just that amazing like breath of relief when you finally complete a chase sequence.
Oh yeah,
with these awfully grotesque monsters, and the ending levels to where it just starts getting really trippy and like you start seeing like deep purples that you never really saw in the game early on. It was just so good, and just like, man, I want there to be a sequel to this one.
There really needs to be, and technically, Little Nightmares 2, wasn't it a prequel?
I think so.
I mean, they don't really go outright and say it.
Yeah.
But it kind of makes it seem like it was a prequel.
I think so, yeah.
So I'd like to see like a true sequel to Little Nightmares. You know, it can be called Little Nightmares 3, but if it was a follow-up to the first game.
Yeah.
Or even honestly a game just in that universe, because that universe is so disgustingly like creepy, but it entrances you. You look at it and you're like, this is just you can't look away. It's so gross and cool.
Every new level that you enter has like completely different threats, a completely different approach, and challenges you to really think about what to do.
Yeah.
However, the reason why I would rank this at number 4 instead of like my top 3 would be, I felt like the puzzles weren't clearly like laid out in a lot of spots. There was one that really stuck out to me, to where you had to jump over an electrified puddle, alert a monster, and then try to lure them over to electrified puddle. They never really showed that you could jump back.
Yes, I remember that one specifically, like that bathroom area.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I thought I was stuck.
Yeah.
And I was trying to like sneak around or go around the couch and like throw them off or something, but it never worked.
There's also a few times where I feel like the controls were rather clunky,
yes,
too, and depth perception kind of was a little tough at times too in that game.
Yeah, especially when you're trying to fight the mannequin hands. It was kind of hard to aim.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what you could have done to make that better. Maybe just make the hitbox or hit detection better.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do agree with you. There were a couple things that like would have been better if they'd had more time to polish it.
Yes, I agree.
But that does not detract from the atmosphere and how much fun this game was.
Oh yeah, it earns its place in our top 5s or 10s.
Mm-hmm.
So much so that that was my number 4.
No way.
Yes,
Awesome.
I thought to my head, I was like, I put that at 3 or 4, and I looked at my list, and I was like, oh yeah, it was 4 too. So
Yeah.
there you go.
All right, so it looks like Little Nightmares is gonna remain at 4.
It'll sit at 4 for now.
Yeah, for
Yep.
now. All right, so why don't you go ahead, Connor, and tell me what your number 3 is?
Oh, we're going over to me, huh?
Yeah, because I wasn't expecting us to have the same number 4. So
Okay. My number 3 is Katawa Shoujo.
okay,
Yeah. So I chose Katawa Shoujo because in my book, this game is in my personal top 10 games of all time. The game has so much heart to it, and it has so many varying paths you can go down with very fleshed out characters, very emotional scenes, different choices that you can make that drastically impact how the story flows. And all of the characters in it feel very distinct and alive. You know, they feel like real people. And I think the subject of a school for disabled children, it just really has not been done in a lot of games.
no,
And there's just so much content to explore. And this is a game that I consistently go back to every year, and I play it. And it's quite an endeavor, too, because it was made by kind of a ragtag team of online people. And I think kind of segueing to why it isn't number 2 or number 1 is the nature of it being made by kind of, you know, a crowdsourced group of people kind of made the art a little inconsistent at times in that game.
yeah,
The music, while good, it can become repetitive over time, and at times there's also a little too much like fluff dialogue, I think, that just maybe isn't important, that's mixed in with a lot of important dialogue. So that's my only really detracting pieces from it. But overall, the quality of that game is just phenomenal, and it's free. That's the crazy thing.
I was really shocked just how, like, I thought you were pulling my leg that it was free. I'm like, what kind of game is this, Connor? Like, seriously.
Like,
but
find a game that has that much content that's free out there.
Exactly.
You know, that's not trying to upsell you something. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, that one was really good. Damn.
So that was my number 3. I don't have a whole lot more to say about it. I could gush about it a lot more if I really wanted to, but I just really enjoyed that game. I think it definitely earns its place on this list.
I would agree. All right, man. We're really swinging through these.
Well, the end is going to be the defining piece.
Right. Okay, my number 3, Manifold Garden.
Okay. Yep.
Again, this was we played this game pretty soon after Ever Forward, and I was a little bit fatigued with Ever Forward with its poor puzzle design, poor teaching, and visual glitches. And when you showed me Manifold Garden, I was looking at the screenshots. I'm like, okay, this looks interesting. And then when I started playing it and teaching me how the mechanics work of where I can make a wall, a floor, I was like, I'm in. I am in 100% of this game. Every single one of these puzzles were intuitive. They were fun to solve. The amount of work that they had to take to have these optical illusions to where you would walk through a door and you see a river flow, and then you walk through what seems to be the same door, and that river disappears. It's all optical illusions. Was so much fun. I cannot imagine how much trial and error for all these little pieces to fall into place correctly. I can't imagine how much work that had to take to get that right.
That game is gorgeous, and I will be 100% transparent. I had a hard time not putting that one on my top 5.
Really?
I struggled. I was like, The thing that I will say about it, that I liked about it, was I thought the puzzles were very intuitive. I thought the game itself had to take such a level of like intelligence to design that it was astonishing that they made it work so well without any issues. Like I didn't have any performance issues, any glitches, anything. Like it ran great. And every puzzle that was there, for the most part, was very intuitive as well. It wasn't like, you mentioned Ever Forward, where all the puzzles were kind of like the way you would solve them in your brain. You're thinking this doesn't seem right.
No.
Whereas in this one, everything, when you saw the puzzle, you're like, that makes sense. Yep. Okay.
And that dopamine squirt when you look at the puzzle and you finally figure it out. Okay, I know exactly what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Felt amazing in this game, especially when like we criticized it in the episode about it, but these rooms are huge.
Mm-hmm.
But being in this huge room and have all these puzzle pieces that you moved around fall into place and that door to open up felt amazing.
Yeah.
And this game was so good.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I want to go back to this game just to experience it again.
Yeah.
I can gush about this game too.
I think the reason it didn't rank as far up, like if I had to give it a ranking, it would probably be like number 6 for me.
Okay.
And the reason I place it there is that sometimes when I was playing that game, it felt like it was a little overwhelming. Like, because the levels went on and on and on endlessly.
Right.
And it made them seem large and overwhelming at times, and could be a little bit like disorienting where you were in the world. That part was a little challenging to me. And I will say that, like, looking back on the games this year, when I looked at that game and I saw it on my list, I was like, yes, I liked that. But it didn't immediately pop in my head when I was thinking of my top 5 before I made the list.
That makes sense. I can see why.
Like, I don't know why, but it did not immediately pop in my head. So when I went and I looked and I chose my 5 games on gut instinct, it just didn't make the cut. But it is a great game, and it does earn its spot, definitely at least in our top 10.
Yeah. Manifold Garden was one of the first games that popped into my head when we decided to have this conversation.
Yeah.
So, all right, Connor, what is your number 2?
Oh, it's Katana Zero.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And here's why. I debated this one for a while because I was like, Katana Zero isn't that wild and outlandish of a game. But the way the game was simultaneously punishing and non-punishing was just so addictive.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact that you could run through a level and die, come back, die, come back, die, come back, but I still kept wanting to go. I was never discouraged in that game. I kept wanting to play. And when you would do a perfect run through, because the whole point of the game is you can't get hit once. So the whole point is go through this entire level and kill all the people in it. And then basically, when you finally get it, you've done a perfect run through an entire level, killing everyone along the way. It's so satisfying.
It's like Hotline Miami for those who have played Hotline Miami.
Yeah. It's very, very satisfying.
It is.
And the story is just so weird, right?
Mm-hmm.
And despite it being a pixelated game, the colors in that game just popped for me. I don't know why. This game just sticks in my head.
The geysers of blood.
Yes.
When you kill an enemy, and it's just so satisfying.
Yes.
And I want to rewind real quick when you said when you enter a room and you kind of have to strategically like pick your path.
Mm-hmm.
I had that issue to where like if I have a bad run, it's like, okay, one more time, I got this.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would die again. Okay, one more time. And I would always say that when I'm about to head to work or when I'm about to go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be like, okay, that was a bad run. Let me try it again. I need to have at least a good run.
Yes.
And I just would fall into that cycle.
It was addictive.
It was very addictive.
And it's not I can't say there are many games out there where I could die and not feel discouraged. Like die that many times and not feel discouraged. Like I was never at a point where I was like, fuck this game. It was always like, I can do better. I can get this. The only thing that really knocked it down from being at my number one was I thought the enemy types were rather repetitive. There was not a ton of variation in that. Most of the innovation came from the way that they laid out the levels and where they placed the enemies. But this game, it was just so inventive. It's kind of like a side-scrolling beat-em-up puzzle game, essentially.
A puzzle game for Katana Zero is actually a really good way to describe this.
It's essentially.
You have to, because you have to work out your best approach. And what's interesting about this game is like your approach would be different than my approach.
Yeah, you can't brute force this game.
No,
you
can't.
have to use your head when you're playing it, and I loved that because it felt fair. Nothing felt cheap, you know.
Right. So, all right. And that was your number two?
That was my number two.
Okay.
What's your number one, buddy? Drum roll.
No, I haven't said my number two.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We switched. Go on, buddy. What's your number two?
Superliminal.
Okay. Yes, I can see that one.
Superliminal was my number two because this was actually my first super rare game that I bought, I believe. And I was always interested in this game because I remember seeing it like on Steam. I think I maybe it was on PlayStation or something. I was interested. The tagline was basically like, it's a game of optical illusions. And I bought this game right off the heels of Manifold Garden. And playing this game gave me the same feeling I got when I first played Portal. It blew my mind of taking a little chess piece and angling the camera to where the perspective makes it look like it's the size of the door, and it becomes the size of the door. The variations of puzzles using this mechanic was so much fun. I almost played this entire game in one sitting because I could not put this game down.
Oh yeah.
Or like later on in the game to where you have to angle yourself to create a cube from like a checkerboard design, and it pops out of the wall. It's like, oh man, I think about this game still every once in a while. Of like when I'm going through my games on the shelf, I'm like, oh man, I want to play that game again.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that game too, and that was another one that I fought back and forth with myself on whether I should put it on my top 5. I think the reason that game didn't make my top 5 was I think the game out of the gate doesn't explain itself very well. And I know for the very first level, I struggled to figure out what I was supposed to do. And I know there were a few levels, like the one with I want to say it was with the apples.
Oh, yeah.
That I got really stuck on because it wasn't super intuitive what I was supposed to do there. But I think the game was very creative, and the red herrings that were in it were really interesting. The game was very Portal-esque in a lot of ways. And I did really like that game. So I can see why it's up there.
What also made that game interesting is as you went further into it, it almost kind of had like a very, like you mentioned the red herring, a red herring horror element to it.
Yes.
And like that reveal later on in the game, you were like, come on.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like eye rolling or cringy. It was just funny.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you got me.
It's like
yeah.
it was very well done.
Yeah, it was good.
But
The
yeah,
game has a lot of charm to it.
it really does. Man, I that's why it's my number 2.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, before I get to my number 1, I do want to give an honorable mention. I mentioned Little Nightmares 1 earlier in the podcast, and I said I was going to come back to it. That's what I want to give an honorable mention to the first Little Nightmares.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the second Little Nightmares, everything about the first game was really well done. The puzzles were fun, the chase sequences were fun. It is beautifully grotesque. The monsters are. The only reason why it gets an honorable mention and not in my top 10 or 5 games was just because we played it on the Switch. And the loading screens were 45 seconds.
And it made you want to die.
Made you want to die. Especially in a game like Little Nightmares where trial and error is kind of part of the game.
Exactly.
I'd
be curious to go back and try it on a different platform and see if the load times are better or if they're comparable to Little Nightmares 2.
But the reason why I didn't want to put this on a bottom 10 for the load screens alone, because everything about that game was very, very, very good.
Oh yeah, I will be transparent now. That game is not on my bottom worst games of the year.
Because I feel like that it would be unfair. I don't know if maybe the developers just didn't have the time or the budget to like properly optimize it.
Yeah, because that game seems like a game that could run just fine on the Switch. It's not a very graphically
it's not.
intensive
So
game.
I'm not sure what the problem was, but I want to go ahead and just mention that game. That is such a good game, and I highly recommend playing that game.
Oh yeah, if you're playing number 2, definitely go ahead and play number 1 first.
Yes. All right, number 1. I have a hunch that your number 1 and my number 1 is probably the same.
Oh really?
Yes.
What is it?
Ghostwire Tokyo.
Yes. Hell yeah.
Yep.
I was really hoping, man. I was like, oh man, it's not on his list so far. I was really hoping it would make it.
This was a very easy decision for me.
Me too.
Because
it was the one that I looked at that list and I was like, well, that's obviously number 1.
Because like I don't think this game got a lot of marketing. Really, I didn't even really know this game was a thing until wow, the wind's really blowing out there.
I know.
As we're talking about a horror game.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, the only reason why I heard about this game was because there was an article that mentioned after Xbox or Microsoft bought Bethesda that the games for the PlayStation are already being developed will still go on PlayStation. And one of the games they mentioned as an example was Ghostwire Tokyo. And so I looked into this game like, okay, this looks interesting. It was only, I don't think it was even a $70 game for PS5. I think it was like a $60 game.
Yeah.
And I played this game, and it first played like a typical Bethesda game or Dishonored, just the way you moved. But then you started getting the abilities. And then you started fighting these monsters. And then you started exploring the city and unraveling the story. And every single one of those were super interesting. The side missions were compelling. This is an open world game that's smaller than like your Horizon Zero Dawns or any of these massive open world games. But this has the most sustenance.
Yes.
For an open world game, like there is very little like surface level fetch quests in this game. Like whatever side mission that you do has its own story.
Yes. And that's what's so great about it is I normally get a little overwhelmed by a lot of RPGs that have a lot of like kind of boring little side quests, but this was one of the few games that had an abundant amount of side quests where I was just like, man, I wish I had more time to do all these. And when other times it's usually like, screw them, I'm skipping them, you know? But this one, I actually wanted to play them.
Mm-hmm. Because, man, and the monster designs.
everything about this game scratched every itch for me. I love the Japanese folklore. I love horror. I love open world games. I love quests that are fun. I thought the combat mechanics were a ton of fun in this game. Visually, the game was gorgeous. It was set in like a modern day Tokyo, but it was like empty, right? And it was filled with these creepy entities and these spiritual beings, and like it just scratched every itch, man.
It had such good atmosphere, and this game on the PS5 ran great. Like,
oh yeah.
Like, okay, I want to preface this. Like, this game has a lot of modes you can play it, and you can just play it in straight performance mode, high fidelity mode, and there's also like this fidelity mode to where I think it puts it at like 1440 p at like 60 frames per second. And I was playing on with that with the PlayStation's VRR, and it ran great. I had almost no stutters in this,
yeah.
and I think that benefits from just the world being a smaller open world.
And I even ran it, I think, on just the fidelity, so just in 4K with the maybe it was with ray tracing, but it was a lower frame rate,
Right?
and I thought it looked great. You know, I didn't have a single problem with it, and just the colors in that game with the HDR, just everything popped when it was raining in the game. The puddles and the reflections,
man.
I could gush about this game forever.
I have very little criticisms of this game,
and I think the reason this one stuck with me, and the fact that I defend it and gush about it so vehemently, is that so many people brushed this game aside.
Yeah, we had a friend at the Halloween party that wasn't too crazy about it.
Yeah, thought the combat wasn't fun and the missions were kind of boring, and I was like, and that the world was boring because it was empty. But I'm like, no, that's the atmosphere. It's all
like,
great.
It's like with the world being empty, I'm like, that's the point. Like,
yeah.
Like this is like one of like the top 5 largest cities in the world where every single person's just gone.
And that's what makes it so creepy, that the only things there with you are these supernatural beings.
But like advertisements are still playing, and like it's literally as if someone just like every single civilian was just plucked out of existence in the moment.
It's weird because you're alone, but you don't feel alone too at the same time. Like, you're alone in a sense of like, there's no one here to help me, there's no allies, there's nothing. But like, because all of the lights in the city were still on, all the vending machines work, all the advertisements were still going, it felt like a city that was still alive in a way. And I think if you have to play like any game next year, give this one a shot.
Absolutely.
Just come on, just give this one a go. It's definitely, and I can say now, on our definitive list, it has made number 1 for this.
It has.
For this section
It has,
here.
absolutely. If I had to have any criticism at all, don't play the English dub. Stick with the sub. Because I was curious, and I went to the English dub, and the voice actors were not that good. And the eating sound was obviously someone going into a mic and just going...
Yeah, play it as it was originally intended with the subs.
That is the only criticism I have, and that's not really much of a criticism.
Yeah, because they didn't even have to put in a dub.
No, they didn't. So, but yeah.
Okay, so
now for part 2 of this podcast, where we take my 5 and your or I should say Connor's 5, and we have to try to make a definitive top 10.
Okay. So I already placed Ghostwire at number 1 for us.
Yep.
I'm making a list for us right now. So let's go through, and I'll just say, where do you think Katana Zero belongs on this list? If you had to give it a ranking yourself. Out of 10.
For me, it would probably be... Let's see. Let me look at my first list I had. Originally I had Sniper Elite 3 out of 10. I think I had more fun with it than Sniper Elite 3. I would probably put this at maybe a 7.
7.
For me
Okay.
personally.
Okay. Let me think here. So, if we split the difference and put it at 4, would you be comfortable with that?
Yeah, I'd be comfortable with that.
Okay. So let me put Katana Zero at 4.
For now, at least.
For now, at least, yes. We're just doing an initial run. So, all right. Where would you place Katawa Shoujo?
I'm really... Oh, man, when you mentioned that, I was like, oh, yeah. For me, that... I had Cadence at 5, but I did have a lot of fun with Katawa. I would probably put that at a 6. My 6.
Can we compromise and put it at 5 for now?
Okay, sure.
Okay. What I'm trying to do is I'm going through my list, having us compromise and find a good spot. Then we're going to go through yours, compromise and find a spot, and then try to make a tiebreaker if we have to.
Sounds good.
Okay. So the next one is we both thought Little Nightmares 2 should be a 4.
Mm-hmm.
Given the other games on the list, should we just bump it up to a 3?
Sure.
Okay. All right. That gives us a good one there because I think it's going to be hard for us to agree on a 2 and a 3. I think we'll be able to do the other ones easier.
Right.
But this is going to be tough. Okay. And then the last one I had was Dust. Where would you place Dust?
That game was fun, but for some reason, every time I went to go play it, I don't know if it was just poor timing for me, but I'd be playing that game and it would almost like put me to sleep. Not because it was boring, but because like it was almost like relaxing for me for some reason.
Okay.
It was very hard for me to engage in it just because it would put me to sleep. Even though that game was good. So it would have to probably be like a 9 for me.
So what if we put it at number 7 for now?
Okay.
Okay. Cool. What was your number 5 so that I can look at this
My
here?
number 5, that one was Cadence. Cadence of Hyrule.
Cadence, I would put it a 6.
Okay.
Is that an okay one for you?
Oh,
Or do
absolutely.
you think okay.
Yeah, like I'm totally fine with that.
Okay. So Cadence, we'll put it a 6 for now. And what was your 4 was Little Nightmares.
Yes.
And then what did you have after that?
Manifold Garden.
Okay. Manifold. You said what number was that? 3?
Yeah, that was number 3.
I would probably put it at like a 7. So I'm gonna place it at 5 right now, if that's okay.
Okay.
And we can argue about that one because that one already has one in its place right now. So I'll put that there for now.
Okay.
And your number 2?
Superliminal.
Superliminal. I'd give that one probably an 8. So put that one at 4 right now, if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay. And we already know our number 1. So here's our issue. So we have Ghostwire at number 1.
Okay.
We do not have a number 2. We have Katana and Superliminal tied for number 4.
Okay. What about number 3?
3, we have Little Nightmares.
Okay.
It's uncontested at the
Gotcha.
And then we have Katawa Shoujo and Manifold tied for 5.
All right.
Followed by Cadence and then Dust. And so we need to make a top 8 based off of the ones that we had together. So I'm comfortable moving Dust and Cadence each down 1, if that's okay.
Okay.
So moving Dust to 8, and then Cadence, oopsie, let me delete that. Moving Cadence down to 7, if that's okay.
No, that's perfectly reasonable. I think my first initial list, I had Cadence at an 8. For like back when we were originally going to do a top 10.
Okay.
So that seems reasonable.
Okay. So now we just have two sets to debate over.
Okay.
Because I'm thinking we move, because we were in agreement on Little Nightmares, I say we move Little Nightmares up to 2.
Okay.
Or, hold on here. We move it up to 2. And then we need to determine between Katana and Superliminal which one's 3 and 4, and Katawa Shoujo and Manifold which one's 5 and 6. If that works.
Okay. So between Superliminal and Katana Zero, even though like I love Superliminal, I love Superliminal. It as I said, it has the same Portal or vibes as Portal for me. Katana Zero's story was just really engaging.
I thought the gameplay was more satisfying.
It was,
too.
and the when you finally get that perfect run, and you would watch your replay and everything, and just it would feel so satisfying. You would feel like a fucking badass.
Yes.
When you pull that perfect run. I do think that the feeling that you get when you complete a level was probably a little bit better in Katana Zero than Superliminal.
Okay.
For me, a little bit. I mean, we're talking about two different genres of puzzle game.
Yeah.
We're like Katana Zero is obviously more of an action puzzle, where Superliminal is just a straight up puzzle game.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have to agree that Katana Zero was probably more rewarding.
Okay. So we'll move Katana to 3 for now. And then...
Even though it kind of kills me, I love Superliminal.
Hey, Superliminal still gets a solid 4.
Yeah.
It's in the top 5 still. Okay. And now we're down to the last 2 here before we review the final list.
Okay.
We have Katawa Shoujo and Manifold fighting for 5 and 6.
Already, I want to have Katawa at 5 and Manifold at 6 because Katawa was my first visual novel. Well, I say first when technically it wasn't. It was A Winter's Daydream was my first visual novel. But the problem with Winter's Daydream was...
Wasn't really any choices.
No, you couldn't do anything. You could literally just have automatic scrolling, put your Switch down, and just watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wouldn't even call it a. Well, calling it a game isn't really. Is kind of being disingenuous because calling Katawa Shoujo a game. I wouldn't really call it a game. Like you said, it's a visual novel.
A visual novel is still a game. You're still making choices. There's still a story, and you're still interacting with things.
Yeah, but Katawa Shoujo's like every character was well fleshed out. I began to get connected with these characters. I started really caring about them, like on like a pretty deep level. Like I didn't want anything bad to happen to them. There were times where I would save often, and if I didn't like the result, I would load a save and go back and try again because just because I like these characters so much, and it made me sad to see them upset.
Yeah, 100%. And I think there's just a lot more replayability in Katawa than Manifold.
Yeah, because
you can play so many different routes.
Mm-hmm. And with Manifold, like even though it's still a good puzzle game, there's only usually one solution for that puzzle.
Yes, true.
You can make an argument that's how it is for a lot of puzzle games, but...
Yeah. So, okay. All right. I will agree with you on that then. I'm going to move that down, and then let's review this. And this doesn't have to be our permanent list. You can dispute this if you don't like this.
Okay.
So we have, at number 1, Ghostwire Tokyo.
Okay.
Number 2, Little Nightmares 2. Number 3, Katana Zero. Number 4, Superliminal. Number 5, Katawa Shoujo. Number 6, Manifold Garden. Number 7, Cadence of Hyrule. And number 8, Dust and Elysian Tale.
Okay.
What do you think of that list?
So far, I agree with it.
You agree with it?
Mm-hmm. Now, but what's going to be 9 and 10?
We don't have to have a 9 and 10.
Okay.
It can just be a top 8.
Sure.
Because we agreed on 2 of them being in the list.
Oh,
so that's why
right.
we don't have 10.
Right. Okay, so yeah, top 8.
Because I think it would be challenging for us to now come up with 2 additional ones and try to find their place in these.
Can I throw out maybe just a couple games I feel like is a justified 10 and 9?
Okay.
Like if this was my list alone, this would have been my 10 and 9.
Okay.
At number 10 would have been Sniper Elite 3,
Okay.
and number 9 would have been My Big Sister.
Interesting.
And mostly because, just real quick, with My Big Sister specifically, was everything felt like just ignore them
Mm-hmm.
up until where you have to feed your sister because she's hungry, and it breaks the fourth wall.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought that was so scary and so effective. I was like that's one of the moments this year that still sticks out in my memory. It's like so that's why I have that at number 9.
Interesting. Okay.
So
I don't know if I have. I actually did have Sniper Elite up on my list. I will say that. I don't know where I placed it, but I would feel comfortable if you wanted to place that at 9. I would be willing to put that at 9.
what, Sniper Elite?
Yes.
Okay,
I would put Sniper Elite there.
sounds good.
The hard part is, though, I cannot recall off the top of my head a game that I thought would do well at number 10.
Let me propose Fury Unleashed.
That's a good one, too. The thing is, like, you picked a lot of my runner-ups as your top 5. So, like, the ones that I would have been like, if you didn't mention them, I was going to say throw them on there. Like, you've already done.
Mm-hmm.
Fury Unleashed is up there. I also thought about Project Warlock.
I thought about that one for a long time, trying to figure out if that goes in my top 10 or top 5.
Mm-hmm.
And while the game is good, the early game is infuriating.
Yes. That's what kept me from putting it in my top 5.
And I agree with you, is like if they could just scale back the difficulty of the early game, because the curve is like, if we were going to do a scale of like 1 to 10 in terms of difficulty, the first couple levels of the first world is like at a 7.
Yeah.
And then after that, it goes down to maybe a 5, and then for a while it's like at a 3, then jumps back up to a 10. The difficulty is all over the place, but it's most apparent in the early game, and I would not blame anyone if they were turned off by Project Warlock purely because of the early game.
I also mulled over 2 other games. Firewatch, though I think the end kind of dropped it for me, and Bug Snacks.
Okay.
Those were 2 others that I considered for putting on the list.
I consider Bulletstorm as well.
Bulletstorm didn't resonate with me.
Really?
Like, it was fun in the moment, but then, like, looking back at this year, it's not very memorable to me.
Okay. So we had Sniper Elite at
9. And so you had My Big Sister, and then you mentioned Fury Unleashed, and then I threw out my brain just lost them.
Firewatch?
Yeah, Firewatch, Bug Snacks, and Project Warlock. Which of those 5 do you think best fits at number 10 based on our discussions?
I still think Fury Unleashed, because I thought the idea of you being a comic book character and the whole overarching story of your creator is getting more and more desperate to try to get out of this slump. And so you're purposely fighting more outlandish enemies, such as Nazi astronauts.
Yeah.
Was really kind of clever.
I could agree with that.
And
Fury Unleashed was definitely in my initial top 10 I created. And
also, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, that's all right.
Like Hands of Hyrule, it was very accessible. You can turn on invincibility if you just wanted to experience the game.
I think the one thing that like kept it lower for me, but I don't think it necessarily excludes it from the top 10, is that once you hit a certain point in the game, there's no going back and replaying levels.
Yeah.
Which kind of was a bummer because that game, in theory, would have a great deal of replayability. So I'm comfortable putting it at 10.
Okay.
So do you want me to go through our top 10 and list them out here?
Let's go through the top 10.
All right. Final order for the Super Clash Podcast Game of the Year that we both played for the show.
2022, starting at number 10.
Number 10, Fury Unleashed. Number 9, Sniper Elite 3. Number 8, Dust and Elysian Tale. Number 7, Cadence of Hyrule. Number 6, Manifold Garden. Number 5, Katawa Shoujo. Number 4, Superliminal. Number 3, Katana Zero. Number 2, Little Nightmares 2. And rounding out at number 1, Ghostwire Tokyo.
Yes. I feel good about that list.
Yes, I'm very happy with that. I think it really reflects how we felt about these games this year.
Mm-hmm. We played so many games this year. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah. And
especially since we started the new format, like the first third of the year.
Yeah. And we've also played a lot of stinkers.
We did.
And so next episode will feature our worst games.
Our
of the
bottom
year.
10.
Yes. So we each will pick 5 of the games that we thought were the worst games we played this year.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll argue which was the shittiest.
Yes. Yes. So, yeah. That is our list for 2022. If you guys want, just go ahead and leave your top games that you played this year in the comments on the YouTube channel. And if you guys like the show, go ahead and subscribe. Or if you don't like the show, tell your friends. Maybe they'll like it. But I'm excited for next year, man.
Oh, yeah. Hell, I'm excited for the next 2 weeks of our Game of the Year podcast.
Mm-hmm.
The grand finale is going to be a blast, I think.
Yeah, which is going to be our personal games that we played, not for the show.
Yeah, and we're not going to debate those because it's